This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
19-1-1, it's kind of self-explanatory of how it's gone. Have we been the perfect team the whole time? No. Have we played pretty well most of the time? Yes. The times when we haven't, the goaltender bailed us out, or the penalty kill, or the power play, and it's all kind of clicked for us. So I can't sit here and say the next 25 or whatever games are going to go like this, but in a division that just keeps winning, in a conference that's been super tight all year, it's nice that we've helped ourselves out. But there's still a long way to go.
It's a long way to go, but the Lightning are on some kind of streak. 19-1-1 in their past 21 games. They beat up on the Panthers last night 6-1. Game was closer than the score indicated. I mean, especially early on. We'll get into maybe why that was the case. We did have some extracurricular activities last night, as to be expected. We had kind of wondered what we would see. That was debated on this show a little bit. That was debated on the pregame show with our panel. Mm-hmm. And I think it came to fruition. And last time these teams will meet, at least in the regular season, although some would say that the Panthers are in some deep doo-doo.
They're in big trouble.
Playoffs. Yeah.
Big trouble.
Yes. So we can get into that. I thought from that perspective, a really good win for Tampa Bay, not only to keep the good juju going, but to beat the Panthers and bury them a little bit more, I thought was a pretty big deal. But we'll get into all of that. This is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. I'm Greg Linnelli, along with Dave Mishkin. At Bolts Radio, if you want to reach out to us, you certainly can. Lots of things to take in, but partner, you know me, sometimes I like to keep it simple. I don't like to overanalyze things too much. I thought Andrei Vasilevskiy was the difference in this game. Certainly there are other components to it that allowed the Lightning to be victorious, but without him playing the way he did early on, even though the Tampa Bay Lightning had a 2-0 lead, I'm not sure they come away with 2 points in regulation.
Well, that's a bold statement. I think that the game might have unfolded very differently if Vasilevskiy wasn't on his game. But, I mean, the Lightning did score 6 goals, so maybe they still would have won. It would have looked a lot different, though. And really the difference was in the first period, Greg, and on that you're absolutely correct. I mean, the Lightning got outplayed in the first period. So when the Florida Panthers are doing what they are doing well, aside from all that, I can just hear all of the commentary from fans related to actual hockey action. When the Panthers are doing what they are doing well, they are forechecking and they are cycling pucks in the offensive zone. And I thought they did that really well in the first period. They forced a lot of turnovers in the Tampa Bay defensive zone, and they had the majority of the puck possession in the first period. The Lightning were also having trouble slowing up the Panthers to the neutral zone, and we've talked about this. The Panthers under Paul Maurice have really become a dump and chase team, especially when you don't have Barkov, he will dump and chase too, but he is very capable of bringing it in. But even still, I thought the Panthers were basically slicing through the neutral zone with ease in the first period, and at times they did carry it in. They were also looking to shoot, and they were pretty effective at getting their shot attempts on net. And so the Lightning were kind of swimming upstream in the first period, except for the score. So the Lightning got a deflection goal from Brandon Hagel early, and then they got a goal from Girgensons at the end of a scramble play near the end of the first period with about 6 minutes left. But if not for Vasilevskiy, this game would not have been 2-0 Lightning after one. On that point, I am in complete agreement. And, part of it, too, was the penalty killers. So the Lightning had to kill a 5-on-3 for just under 90 seconds. And I believe they credited the Panthers only one shot on the 5-on-3. So that is a credit to the 3 penalty killers. They were looking for Reinhart in that bumper spot where he is extremely dangerous. And some passes were a little offline. The Lightning were disrupting some of them. I think they got a clear at one point. Remember, Gord brought it into the offensive zone. Mm-hmm. I forget who he was with. Maybe Moser. but they actually killed a little time with possession on a 5-on-3 against, which is very impressive. But most of the story in the first period was Vasilevskiy. The Lightning got better in the second period, but they weren't really on top of their game, I didn't think. They still had some turnovers. They still had to rely on Vasilevskiy to make some key saves. But the numbers in the first period were the most stark. So remember, in the Stadium Series game, the Lightning allowed 20 shots in the first period to the Bruins. That was a high water mark for shots allowed in a period all year for the Lightning. Last night, they allowed 19 shots in the first period. So it wasn't as bad at the end of the period as the first period on Sunday because the Lightning gave up 3 goals. But the flow of play was very similar. They also gave up 34 shot attempts. They were out-attempted 34-14. Yeah. And not a lot of that came on the 5-on-3. Most of that was 5-on-5. So the Panthers did very well in the first period, and they probably came out of that first period saying, are we really down 2-0 in this game? Mm-hmm. But that's the Vasilevskiy effect. And, in too many games, in too many big games over the last couple of years, the Panthers really haven't seen that Vasilevskiy. I mean, I don't think that he's played terribly, but he was shutting the door on them. And the way the season has gone for them, I think that added into a lot of their frustration in a game that they really, really needed. So at the end of the first period, I think the Lightning iced the puck with 3-point-something seconds left. There was a face-off to the right of Vasilevskiy. It looked like they quick dropped the puck, and the Lightning were able to control the face-off, kind of knock it to the corner. I think the Panthers thought that it was going to be a false start, and they'd get another crack at it. And the officials were like, nope, that's the end of the period. And Tkachuk argued, and he got a minor penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Abuse of officials was actually how it was written. So, I mean, it's not just that he argued. He crossed the line and entered the territory of you're getting a penalty. So the Lightning entered last night's game 0 for 15 on the power play against the Panthers during the regular season series, and we detailed what happened in the playoffs last year. 3 for 18 in the 5-game series. They went 3 for 18 prior to that in the regular season series as well against the Panthers. But they broke through last night with a power play goal. A power play that started with a center ice faceoff, too. They didn't even start in the offensive zone. Yeah. But they got it in, and it's the similar setup that we've seen for the Lightning that has yielded power play success in this span where they are clicking over 30% since January 1st or whatever it is. Radish, a big shot from the point. If it's not going in, the goalie is making a save but having trouble with the rebound. Jake Gensel's there, and he pops in it. So now it's 3-0. And I think it did take some of the bite out of the Panthers' attack because they weren't as effective at pressuring the Lightning. Even though I still think the Lightning could have played better, honestly, and they did lean on Vasilevskiy. He made a save on Balinskis, made a little spin move at the circle. He stopped Samoskevich after the Lightning had a turnover in their own zone. And then late in the period, his best save of the period was on Bennett at the back post, where he made a left pad save. But he stopped all of them. So it stayed 3-0, and the Lightning get a fourth goal. Tarasov did not give the Panthers the sort of goaltending that they need. I mean, on that fourth goal, he makes a save. He needed to cover that rebound. He didn't. Chernak chases it behind the net, scores on a wraparound that goes off Luostarinen stick. Usually wraparounds are not going in the air. They're along the ice because you're sweeping it. This one went in the air because it hit Luostarinen's stick, fluttered in the air, hit Tarasov's arm, and went in the net. So a little bit of bad luck for the Panthers there, but that happens, right? And when it rains, it pours. Things are not going for them well this year, unlike maybe in some other years where things were going well and, every light is green and, they're getting the breaks. This year, I'm guessing they are getting a lot of these breaks go against them. That was a break that went against them. So now it's 4-0. And what you said, I was thinking about this during the intermission. What you said was on the show yesterday, if the Lightning get a big lead, I think you were advancing the theory that maybe the Lightning reduce Brandon Hagel's minutes. Mm-hmm. The Panthers really left Brandon Hagel alone yesterday, especially in the first 2 periods when the game was still competitive. I mean, Chernak's goal came late in the second, so it was 4-0 going into the third. But it wasn't Hagel they went after. It was Kucherov. And
even worse, in many ways,
right.
You talk about impact.
he got hit to the ice twice without the puck on the same sequence. Now, was either hit flagrant? Like, did they blow him up? No, but you don't have the puck. You're not expecting to get hit, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They being Mikkola and Tkachuk. So there are a lot of players on the Panthers I think the Lightning are not crazy about. AJ Greer, Ekblad for the hit on Hagel last year, certainly Tkachuk, who has done some stuff. Nico Mikkola might be at the top of the list. I mean, you can count through the years, the last couple of years, all of the plays Mikkola has had against Lightning players, starting with Gergensen's face into the dasher, the Jake Gensel play with the elbow where Gensel fought him, this play on Kucherov, completely unnecessary. Unnecessary. He didn't have to do it. He did it. Same guy. Refuses to fight anyone other than Jake Gensel as well. Even prior to this situation with Douglas, which Phil didn't like that play either, but that came later. So Mikkola knocks down Kucherov. They're calling an interference penalty. Vasilevskiy goes to the bench. Gord comes on. This is kind of an important point when we get to the weird misconducts that were given after the scrum. So the Lightning have a 6-on-5 with the net empty. And ESPN, in a way, I'm glad ESPN did the game because they have a lot of cameras, right? And we saw kind of the overhead shot was like the full ice. And you see Matthew Tkachuk, Panthers get a change. Their 3 forwards, I think, go to the bench. 3 new forwards. Come on, Tkachuk's one of them. You see him peel back all the way to his own zone, go to the other side of the ice, come up behind Kucherov, who was standing with his back to Tkachuk, and he knocks him down. Now, again, was this flagrant? No. It actually reminded me in a way of the hit on Gensel in Game 3 of the playoffs last year, for which Tkachuk got a major penalty for interference, if you remember. He didn't get suspended because it wasn't flagrant. But, like, it's clear that he went out of his way to do it, and he did it to the best player on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So now you've got the fuse lit, and Hagel decides to fight Tkachuk, and he basically, let's just say he decisively won the fight, okay? That was the first fight. If you have a second fight during the same kind of scrum, those two players get a fighting major and a game misconduct. That was the Moser-Forsling fight. Now, I've seen some chatter from some, people on the Florida side who are not, I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about people who cover the team, who are like, Forsling didn't want to fight and Moser just wouldn't leave him alone. Well, there may have been an element of truth to that, but, Forsling is shoving Moser. Moser is not letting him skate away, but, Forsling is shoving him back, and then they decide to fight. Moser, I believe, stepped on a stick and fell. And at that point, Forsling delivers 3 punches with Moser on the ice. Now, when you watch the replay, which I didn't see this live, he punches him basically in the body, not in the, like, you could damage somebody badly if you punch them in the face when they are laying on the ice, because there's no give, right? There's no place for the head to go. Forsling didn't do that. But what he still did was punch a guy who was on the ice, who was in a defenseless position, and that is just verboten. It is not accepted. It's not. That might have been Forsling's first fight, as far as I know, or maybe I know. And he was clearly ticked off. Maybe about what happened in the game, maybe the season that they're having, maybe that Moser was, coming at him. But the fact that he didn't get anything extra for that, I mean, the Lightning still got a 2-minute 5-on-3 out of it because of the 2 minor penalties. But the takeaway from the Moser-Forsling shouldn't have been that Moser was egging on Forsling, which I still think is overstating it. It was that Forsling committed a huge no-no. Sure. You just don't do that. You don't. No matter how mad you are, You don't do it. And I'll just bring this up. I know it was a completely different situation. Scott Sabourin wailed Ekblad in the preseason. Wailed him. Once Ekblad went down, did Sabourin jump on top of him and start throwing punches? No. He didn't. So, fortunately, Moser seems to be okay. They got game misconduct, so we didn't see them after that. And And then all the remaining skaters on the ice, with the exception of Tarasov, who was still in the game at that point, because Vasilevskiy was on the bench, they all got 10-minute misconducts, which is kind of a mystery as to why they were given those 10-minute misconducts. Now, Phil and I were wondering about this, and we were even talking about it after the game. It's possible that the two referees were kind of given a loose directive, like, if you sense things starting to go off the rails, just take control.
Yeah.
And that might have been it. It was not warranted. And the reason why the Lightning got an extra 10-minute misconduct is because they had Gord on the ice. So the 4 Lightning players who were not really involved in anything were Kucherov, Gensel, Radish, and Gord. They all got 10-minute misconducts. Mikkola got the original 2, but he was not involved in any fight during the fights. So it was Mikkola, Bennett, and Verhaeghe got the misconducts for the Panthers, and then they had Reinhart in the box to serve the penalty, basically, for Tkachuk, because Tkachuk got an interference penalty for knocking down Kucherov. So we kind of come back to the same storyline here, Greg, as it relates to, at least in some of these games with the Panthers. This game would have just gone along swimmingly. We had nothing happening in the first 2 periods. But kind of like that preseason game where Greer went out of his way to sucker punch Hagel and lit the match just like that last night. All of this started because it was really Tkachuk. I think the Lightning would have been fine just taking their 2-minute minor with Mikkola. Maybe Douglas still would have come at Mikkola later. We don't know. But it was the Tkachuk play. The second time they knocked down Kucherov in the same sequence. It's like, it's on. You're doing this again? It is on. And the Lightning weren't going to back down from it. So they scored right after the 5-on-3 ended. Tarasov unfortunately hurt himself during a sequence, I think, right before then. You don't want to see that. He really had trouble getting off the ice and even down the tunnel. And then on the next shift, Douglas tries to engage Mikkola, who does not reciprocate. Douglas fights him, gets a 5-minute major for fighting, and a game misconduct. So the Panthers get a 5-minute major. They scored 1 goal on the major to make it 5-1. They didn't get enough, basically, to get back in the game. And then Bjorkstrand scored late for 6-1. But, I mean, this was the game the Panthers needed. And they really stayed away from any funny business until the game was out of reach. And the last thing I'll say about it is Tkachuk was not thrown out of the game. Hagel was able to return. So the first fight is a 5-minute fighting major. Tkachuk got 2 for interference and a fighting major. He got 7 minutes of penalties, but he left.
Yeah.
So maybe he got banged up a little bit. Maybe he's like, peace out. I'm done with this game. Whatever the case, he went back to the room. He did not return, but even though he was eligible to return. So the Panthers had to go the rest of the way without Tkachuk and without Forsling.
Couldn't believe Forsling did what he did. Then again, I think when these two teams face off, I'm not surprised either, and I think that's unfortunate. But you expect it. Who was Douglas wailing on in the midsection?
Mikkola. Yeah.
So
that was the thing.
He was going ribcage. And I will tell you this. Brian on the last call said that even that can be dangerous. Because if you're just wailing on a guy exposed in the ribcage, that thing could collapse.
So he's talking about Douglas, or he's talking about Forsling on Moser?
When Douglas was pounding Mikkola. But to your point, you never know when you're just hitting somebody in that area too. I mean, you could break a rib. You could do something that is pretty dangerous. Bottom line is, what Forsling did was dirty, and that is what it is. Felt good for Hagel getting that goal early on, and then he addresses Tkachuk, and I forgot this. Perhaps I'm sure you didn't, but was it in last year's playoff when Kuch gets hit and nobody did anything?
I actually didn't remember that either, but Brian mentioned it on the
that
last call. Yeah,
and
I didn't remember Tkachuk.
Case,
I didn't remember Tkachuk hitting Kucherov in Game 1 of the playoffs last year.
So I'm assuming it was Tkachuk who he was referencing, but
yeah, it was.
He goes down and nobody did anything, and it's almost like you could see Hagel, and I'm sure Hagel had a lot of frustrations, anyways, a lot of emotions.
Yeah,
but you know what? You hit arguably the best player in the game today. I mean, Dave, we've seen this with other teams and their players. There is that code in hockey that you're going to have to answer for that. And Hagel, to his credit, went right after Tkachuk and said, that's enough. that is enough. And
well, Radish wanted to as well.
And I
Radish
appreciate
kind
that.
of got pulled away.
So I appreciate that. Fighting is what it is in today's game. I think what they were doing with Kucherov, you expect it, but that doesn't mean you allow it. Mm-hmm. And that's how they handled their business last night. And so, big picture, that was another really good win. I thought it was also interesting that out of the 6 goals the Lightning scored, every one of those guys are going to the Olympics, right? I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? That is right. Gergensons gets another goal.
Yeah.
Holmberg gets another goal. I mean,
well, they had 9 in the lineup, right? I mean, didn't they have 9 in the lineup? Because Sorelli and Point are not going.
Sure.
I guess they had 8 in the lineup because I'm including Stahoviak in there. But
it was just Vasi was the difference for sure because he allowed the team to keep that lead. Let's keep it that way. The Lightning score first, then they score again. Panthers had some pushback, and Vasi allowed it to be what it was. So, by the way, we talked about this on the show. I mean, the front runners for major awards right now, you can make the argument all are coming from the Tampa Bay Lightning side. I mean, Kucherov has a legitimate shot to be the scoring leader this year. He really does.
I think he needs to keep up the pace.
He does.
But, I mean, it's going to be a 3-person race again.
And who would have thought that based off of the start that McKinnon had?
And, I mean, he was in double-digit minus territory at one point early in the season. And now he's not where Moser is, but he's up among the league leaders.
I mean, it is. And
in plus-minus.
I made the point, and I might have made it. The shows run together, honestly. That
if you said it, we remember it. Doesn't matter when.
That's right. I do think the conversation of MVP needs to get louder for Cooch based off of expectations coming into the year for Tampa Bay, because I don't think anybody thought this, and then you factor in the injuries. And people have talked about, I can't believe the Lightning are playing this well with the Hedmans and the McDonoughs and the Points, and that is all very true.
Yeah.
But to counter that, knock on wood, the one player who's been relatively healthy has been the best player on this team, and that is Kucherov. And
he's been on a tear since.
Unbelievable.
It's 20 of the last 21 games he is pointed, and in many of last night he had 1 point, but in most of these games he's got 2 or more. And we could probably even extend it back a little further than that in terms of when he started heating up. But he is on a tear. I'm not sure he's been on a tear like this. We'd have to go back and look at stretches. I mean, Steve had given us the stat. He had 75 points in 35 games. So now it's, 36 games. He got 76 points in his last 36 games. We'd have to go back and look. He had that MVP season in 18-19 when the Lightning won 62. And, he was just spitting out points left and right. But that was more of a full season of doing it. I'm not sure that he had, and it's hard to say that, 36 games is a concentrated number because the Lightning played 55. So, I mean, it's after the first 19. He missed a couple due to illness, but he's on a crazy tear. The one thing I will say, and he's been part of how they've played well defensively, but, I mean, some of the Lightning success in the absence of some key players has been how they've defended. And to me, that is, team-wide, it's the goaltending. It's Moser and Radish as a pair. It's the Gord line, matching up against the other team's top unit often. But the Kucherov effect in terms of helping the Lightning score has been enormous as well.
Yeah. It, listening to John Cooper after the game, basically about his team and, where they are, and he just kind of gave the record and where they are right now in terms of the nice streak they're on. And you can tell he's damn proud of this team.
Yeah.
He really is. And they asked him, like, what's the message you have for some of the players who aren't going to the Olympics? Like, get away.
Yeah.
Because now...
I don't think Cooch is getting away. Cooch
would
drive
cat.
himself crazy. Yeah, he's going to go to the practice rink and
by the way,
work on stuff.
I know, look, this is another topic, but wouldn't it be cool to see Russia in the Olympics? Yeah. Based off of how good Cooch is going and Vasi's going.
They would be a medal favorite. I mean, you want to say...
I agree with you.
The 3 teams would be U.S., Canada, and Russia, just based on the quality of the players that they could put on that team.
You know, the knock
The
on the
goaltending
Russians
alone. I mean, who are your three goalies for Russia?
Yeah, well, Vasilevskiy, and then Vasilevskiy.
And well, I mean, you've got Bobrovsky, you've got Sorokin.
It probably Shesterkin, those three. It would probably be those three. The knock on the Russians, in my opinion, partner, from watching the Olympics, is that they haven't necessarily had the back end that complements the forwards, and maybe even the coaching to a lesser degree. I don't know, but we certainly know they have enough firepower.
Yeah.
At least for two lines. I mean, you could probably fill it out at this point, because before, when the Russians played, there were a few guys that were playing and not in the NHL. I do remember that. I don't know if you'd have that now.
No, I think you could find six defensemen. I mean, Sergachev would be on the team.
Sergachev may be the top defenseman. Mm-hmm. Provorov maybe would be there too.
Provorov would be
right?
there. Orlov is a great defenseman.
He's a good defenseman.
He's very highly regarded.
But
and not all these guys need to be like crushing the point totals. They just need to be, solid defensemen.
But who? I mean, would Sergachev be the best defenseman off the top of your head?
I'd have to go and look at the.
Am I missing
the defensemen? Yeah, offensively, you're probably right.
Have to.
Although Sergachev has called Orlov, I think Sergachev was once asked who's the best offensive defenseman from Russia, and he mentioned Orlov.
What about
Sergei? Knows him well.
Could Sergei Gonchar still play? Sergei Zubov.
Yeah, Zubov.
He was tremendous. But it just, it got me thinking here of like, man, that would be a heck of an Olympics, because, I mean, Lightning fans will be watching that all the time. I mean, because you'd be seeing so many good players.
You would see a Kucherov-Panarin duo on a power play.
You would. I mean, there is so much talent. Anyways, that being said, John Cooper has talked about it. This is a heater that we have not seen, not only from a team perspective, but I also think from some individual perspectives, Kucherov being one of them, but also Vasilevskiy in net.
Yeah.
And this is some of their finest work.
16-0-1 stretch.
I mean, it's incredible.
Among one of his best streaks in his career.
It's been incredible. And they should be very proud of what they've accomplished. The good news is, knock on wood again, by the time they come back from the Olympics, I mean, dare I say they're going to have close to a healthy roster?
Well, we don't know the exact nature of the Cirelli injury.
Right.
I mean, we know what Point's injury is, and it was not expected to be like the rest of the season. So he'll get time here. I mean, it was tough news. We learned about that after we were off the air, of course, yesterday for Point. The Cirelli situation, we just don't know, what the extent of the injury is. The defensemen, though, looks like Destu and Lilleberg are on the mend. They've been skating. I would think that this 3-week break would be enough for them. Coop was asked about, I think Eric actually asked him, you wanted two things, a win and no injuries. And he's like, you got it. He's like, well, Finley blocked the shot and tried to give it a go. I didn't realize Finley sat on the bench and didn't play in the third period. It was hard because the lines were mixed up a bit with the penalties and all of that. But it didn't seem to be like overly serious for Finley. So, hopefully he can use the time to rest up as well. So your premise is correct. Most of the players who are injured should be back or close to being back by the time play resumes, with the one caveat: we don't really have an exact timetable on Cirelli. We just knew that he wasn't well enough to go to Italy. And Phil pointed out, like, it's tough for any player who is picked for a team to play in the Olympics, which would have been their first Olympics, and then not to go. And for Cirelli, who's of, Italian heritage, like Phil, who's also from Italian heritage, he's like, he would have been loving that experience, going to Italy and playing in the Olympics. But
I also
not to be.
Yeah, I also mentioned this to the guys after the game, and there was so much talk about the players who were left off the Canadian roster, and that
Jarvis and Bennett are now going, though. They were the two names that were mentioned quite a bit.
And I wonder, because I don't know where I read it, who said it, but where I heard it and the way it was phrased was something like, good on Braden Point, who basically took himself out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm wondering, is it easier to do that when you know you've got a bunch of guys who are healthy and who are very talented, rather than, and this was my example, Latvia. There's only so many, and you're kind of like, well, if I can get over there, and maybe I don't play in the first game, but maybe I can get in the second game.
Right.
Because you don't have the depth. Is it
I think
easier?
They probably had to do, because you don't dress every player. They had to have known that it was going to take a little bit longer. I mean, he's been skating.
Yeah.
But
although Marchand's going, correct, but he was
Marchand is battling something, but he is going. But battling something, like, if you can play and be effective, you're going to go. Point's got a knee injury.
Yep.
His skating is the most important part of his game. So, if he can't really do what he would do normally to allow himself to become the player that he is, that's a tough one. I don't know what the Marchand injury is, but they held him out last night. They held him out. They held Ekblad out. I think there was another player they held out due to illness. The Panthers competed. I mean, the Panthers played hard in the first period. They didn't get rewarded, and then they were down.
Mm-hmm.
And the game got away from them on the scoreboard, and then they started with the funny business in the third period. But it remains, the fact remains the same. So what do they have now left? 25 games. Last night they had 26. We were saying on the show yesterday, 26 games left. To get to 100 points, they need 39 points. So let's say 19 wins. They're still at that same 61 point total. I don't know if it's going to take 100 points to get in the playoffs. But if that's their goal, they're like, we need to get to 100 based on the quality of the play in the Eastern Conference. 100 is where we need to get. Like, they're running out of mulligans. They just are. Like, you can do the math. They need 19 wins and another point. And now they only have 25 games left. Unless somehow you can get in with, 98, 96, 94. But you start losing games, you're losing the point potential. You're dropping 2 points that are possible. So by my count, let's say 20, just to make it even. They have 5 mulligans down the stretch. That's it. And if they have more than 5 regulation losses, or they're dropping points, they're going to need to get in with less than 100. And they're still dealing with injuries. I mean, they're going to get healthy. I was talking with Doug Plagans before the game. He's like, yeah, they expect Jones back. They expect, I'm trying to remember who else. So Kulikov got hurt in the second game. He's like, he's not going to be back right away, but maybe soon after. He's like, they're going to be extremely cautious with Barkov, which makes sense. Like, why would you rush that guy back? Jones coming back, if he's healthy, will help them a lot. But even still, it's a grind. It's a grind to go 3 times deep in the playoffs with a short off season and then come back and do it again.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's the odds are just not with
It's extremely tough.
Yeah.
And look, it was a different time, but you look back, the Islanders won 4 straight cups and got to 5 straight finals. Like, that is just insane when you think about the gauntlet you had to go through. And I know there was less parity in the league then, but you're still having to win all those playoff rounds against quality opponents. By the time you get into the playoffs, you're playing good teams, And they had some narrow escapes in there. We were just a couple of months ago, we were looking at the Islanders played the Penguins. They were heavy favorites, the Islanders. The Penguins almost beat them in the first round.
Yeah.
Overtime in the final game. It was a best of 5. Like, that was in their run, where they won all these series in a row. They had some close calls that really forced them to dig deep. And then they come back and they do it again. They get in the playoffs. They go all the way to the end. I mean, that is just insane, how hard it is to do. And in some ways, it's even harder now. Even though you have more teams getting in the playoffs, the parity in the league makes it harder. And also, you have to win more games to win the Stanley Cup than you used to have to win.
You're right about that. And I think the parity in today's game makes it even more difficult because of all of the energy you're going to be using up to go on a run, quite frankly, that the Lightning are on. And I think that's harder to do midseason than it is at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Because I think teams are kind of dialed in at this point. I mean, there's more urgency now than there is at the beginning of the year. And so you're fighting that level of intensity.
Right.
As well. And, we'll see what happens. So just something to keep an eye on. I know
they squandered. I mean, if they end up missing the playoffs, there are going to be a lot of things they can look back on, starting with the Barkov injury. And look, that's a significant injury. If Alexander Barkov had not gotten hurt, the Florida Panthers would be in better position. I'm confident saying that. But how much better position would they be in? I mean, as we mentioned, Reinhardt's played every game. Bennett's played basically every game. Verhaeghe has been consistently in every game, just about. I mean, again, I'm not looking. A couple of those guys maybe missed a game or two. Forsling has played every game. Like, Bobrovsky's been healthy all year. Like, a lot of their main guys have been healthy. Missing Barkov hurts. There is no question. But if we're just going to get into the micro, they had a tough road stretch, 9 out of 10 on the road, the Panthers I'm talking about. And they had a similar situation to the Lightning where Doug was telling me, they had twice they came home and played one game and then went back on the road, which I'm not sure when exactly that was, because I know they had 9 of 10 on the road. He's like, one time they came home and didn't play a home game. Well, the Lightning did that too. The Lightning came home after they played Philly, Pittsburgh, came home, and then went back on the road to play St. Louis, Dallas. Twice the Lightning came home, played one game at home, went back on the road. They were very similar to what the Panthers had, and the Lightning crushed it, and the Panthers didn't. But at the end of this road stretch, the Panthers went out to the Central Time Zone, and they ended up sweeping Winnipeg, Minnesota, Chicago. The games 2 and 3 in a back-to-back. That gave them a little push, right? I think they were 6th in the division at that point. They come home, no back-to-backs, a bunch of home games, and until they beat Boston, they lost 4 straight in regulation. Ball game. Maybe not ball game, but close to ball game. They had 8 possible points. They got 0. As all these other teams are marching ahead, right? So they finished with a win against Boston, but other than that, 5 regulation losses and 6 going into the Olympic break. That's a killer. It's a killer. And now they're in this like narrow path. I'm talking about winning 20 of 25 down the stretch.
It's hard ask. I think
very hard ask. Yeah.
So,
and I think some of the they play on the edge, but some of what we saw last night, I am certain is just frustration bubbling over for them. It's like, we're the cup champs. How is this happening?
Right.
We want it to happen, but it's not happening. Right?
I would agree. Let's get to some questions. What do you think?
Yeah.
Got about 20 minutes left here. For the next 2 weeks, we'll be out. Bengal says, any word on DOPS suspending Kucherov for getting in Kachuk's way?
So for the people who are actually not being sarcastic, like, Kachuk should be suspended. I did not think that was a suspendable offense. Just like I didn't really think the hit on Gensel in the playoffs last year was a suspendable offense. But I tell you what, Greg, if Matthew Kachuk did get suspended for a play like that, it would stop him from doing that ever again. That's the way you stop it.
Yeah.
Probably for any other player, that's not a suspendable play. I mean, he got a minor penalty.
Sure.
It probably didn't warrant more than that, but it's completely needless. Look who he did it to, right? It was sneaky, and the league could be like, you know what? We're tired of seeing you do this. You do it again, you're getting suspended, and if you do it again, you're going to get a suspension again, and it's going to be even longer. That would stop it. Unless he actually wants to get suspended, which, I don't think that's the case. You draw a line in the sand, and yeah, you're singling out one player, but this player has done this. I'm not suggesting that they do it, and I didn't think that the hit was suspendable, but that's how you would stop it moving forward.
E4 says, I'm still trying to figure out what Kuch went to the box for.
So people keep saying Kuch. It's not just Kucherov. It was the 7 skaters not involved in the fights. So, yes, we don't really know why, but it's not like the Lightning were singled out there. The 3 Panther players, I mean, Mikkola got a minor, but the 3 Panther players, including Mikkola, who didn't fight, also got 10-minute misconducts. It was, they swept up the whole block. There was like, street yard brawl, and the police came in and they're like, we're taking all of you. Round them up. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's very possible there may have been some directive going into this game. It's like, we don't want any funny business heading into the Olympics. Nip it in the bud. Now, it was unfortunate because the Lightning had a 2-minute 5-on-3, and they didn't have the services of Hagel, Kucherov, Radish, or Gensel.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up scoring a couple seconds after the 5-on-3 ended anyway.
Karen says, what a week of Bolts hockey. All 3 games were insane. It was a heck of a week. When you think about the opponents they took on, Stadium Series, I mean, that's the other thing we forget about a little bit. We get so wrapped up in the Stadium Series, we forget that, the Atlantic Division and those opponents there and taking care of business.
Yep.
I mean, that is absolutely what we had to look at here. Partner, I got to step out for 1 second. I'm going to get to this question with Thomas from Lutz. He says the Bolts have really set themselves up for success. Outside of JBB finding a faceoff guy, they are ready to make a run.
Well, I think that, go ahead, Craig. I think that the Lightning are very happy with their team. I have no idea if Julian's going to make a move at the deadline. We've talked about this, but it's coming up. Like, the trade deadline is in effect. Sorry, the roster freeze is in effect. The trade deadline is going to be happening a couple weeks after the freeze ends, and we'll see if the Lightning make a move. At this point, I think I would be a little surprised if it's a big, like, earth-moving type of transaction. Could it be on the edges, like this fan is suggesting, a face-off guy? I mean, I do think the Lightning could use a face-off guy, but the question that I actually asked of Julian at the Fireside Chat was, what about a face-off guy? Because the face-off numbers were low, and if the fans have heard me say this before, you're going to hear me repeat it, and if you haven't heard it, I'll say it again. You can hear it for the first time. What Julian said was, I am more focused, basically, on where our defensive numbers are at and where our 5-on-5 numbers are at than face-offs, which is not to say he wouldn't like to have a higher face-off percentage, and they do definitely miss a right-handed centerman for defensive zone face-offs. They miss a guy like that. But it has not hurt them. And I think if you look at the league overall face-off standings, I'll actually check them right now and make sure that this is accurate. I believe the bottom 3 teams in face-off percentage are the Lightning, Buffalo, and Minnesota. All 3 of those teams are having objectively fantastic seasons. So the face-off weakness has not hurt any of those teams. Actually, the Lightning have inched up a little bit. They're tied with Chicago, 29th and 30th together. 31st Minnesota, 32nd Buffalo. So I do believe it is important to try and win faceoffs, especially key faceoffs. If you lose a faceoff that's a key faceoff, you're inviting trouble. But clearly the Lightning have navigated just fine without it. And the one area where they have struggled, especially in faceoff percentage, penalty killing faceoff percentage, their penalty kill has been outstanding this year. So it hasn't hurt them. And I think Julian is sensitive to just bringing in a faceoff guy that may upset kind of how the team is constructed right now. Anyway, Steve, you're still with us, right? Do we have any other questions? Maybe not. I guess I'm flying solo right now until Greg returns. Well, in case the fans didn't hear Greg say it yesterday, we are going to be taking a 2-week break. So substitute your power lunch fill with maybe some Olympic hockey because it's in Italy, so that's 6 hours ahead. So there will be games. I don't know if it's going to be at noon to 1, but there will be some Olympic hockey during the day if you have a chance to catch any of it. Hopefully that will substitute for power lunch until we're back on the 23rd. There's a question from Alan. Vasi was absolutely tremendous last night. I also think Kucherov showed a lot of restraint when Kachuk blindsided him. Forsberg, I think he means Forsling, should face a suspension for hitting Moser when he was down on the ice. Well, Forsling didn't get an extra penalty for that, so I'm not entirely certain that he will get it. It was not really part of the hockey code. That was outside the code. Clearly, he was extremely upset, though. So, let me just say one more thing about Forsling. Forsling is a great player. Forsling is not a fighter. I don't even know if Forsling's even been in a fight in his NHL career. The reality is, though, that Gustav Forsling plays on a team that does look to target, and I will use that word, some of the best players on the other team. We've had enough evidence of this through the years, whether it's Brandon Hagel, whether it's Seth Jarvis in Carolina, Kucherov, Gensel, took the elbow from Mikkola. If your team is going to target the other team's top players, you, as one of the top players on your team, has to be ready for someone on the other side to maybe come at you. And Moser didn't cheap shot Forsling. I think the most generous description from the Panther side would be Moser goaded or egged Forsling into a fight that Forsling didn't want to have. But it's not like Moser got an instigation. I mean, it's not like he attacked Forsling. They were pushing. Moser didn't give him an out, basically, and said, yeah, I think we're going to fight here. So Forsling maybe didn't want to do that. What I was just saying, Greg, is like, if you're Forsling, you're not a fighter.
Right.
You're a terrific player, one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. But if you play on a team that is in the habit of looking to engage the top players on the other team on a regular basis, no matter the team, lots of teams they do this to, as one of the top players on your team, you need to be on your guard that, this may come back to you. That was the thing that Brian talked about in his day. It was like, if you look at Gretzky funny, we're not only coming for you, we're coming to your high skill player.
Yeah, right.
Your high skill player better watch his back. So, I mean, they didn't send Sabrin after Gustav Forsling, but Moser was like, I'm the best defenseman I'm the best defensive defenseman right now on the Lightning. Yeah. You're the best defensive defenseman on the Panthers. We just had this happen. Your team knocked down Kucherov.
Yeah.
Our best offensive player. This is happening. That's how I saw it.
And at that point, just take off the gloves and go.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, just get it out of the way.
Well, I think Moser didn't want to get an instigation, and they did know that fight would give a game misconduct because it was the second fight after the initial altercation.
Good point by you.
So,
good point by you. Lucas says, Bolt's very lucky to leave that game uninjured last night. We all knew what was about to happen once the score was 4-0. Scumbags coming over the ports looking to injure superstars.
Well, that is an overstatement. I mean, again, Kucherov was knocked to the ice, but I didn't think either hit was flagrant. But it was, both hits were sneaky, and both hits were completely unwarranted.
I didn't see Verhaeghe going after Chernak last night.
No, Verhaeghe was a little, even in that scrum, Verhaeghe was on the ice. Chernak wasn't, but
Greer was for the most part behaved.
For the most part, yeah.
You know, I mean, what's cool about those games, especially the Panthers, you can watch what's happening behind the scenes a little bit. At least I can, to see if anything's gonna happen. There wasn't a ton of that going on, you know. So, you know, we'll see how that plays out. Carl says, Dom with 5 goals, 8 assists, and a +4 in 40 games played of a rookie year coming in training camp out of nowhere is impressive.
He's had a good rookie year. I think he's acquitted himself very well in his first NHL season.
Yeah.
And he has to keep building on it. But based on his kind of demeanor and personality and drive, he seems like the sort of person that will continue to work to try and improve his game.
Everly says down 3 centermen and still finding ways to win. Yeah, that's impressive.
And that's the thing. Look, I mean, there are a lot of teams out there that have had significant injuries, and some teams have handled those injuries better than others.
Does it speak to how good Kucherov's been, though, that when you lose 3 centers, you're still able to generate scoring as opposed to being without 3 of your top defensemen? I'm wondering, like, which one's a little more impressive? Because you would think 3 centermen,
but
depth offensively.
they've missed 3 of their top defensemen this year too.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, like, which one is more impressive that they've been able to keep their head above water? The fact that I think it's because I think collectively you can D up, right? I think there's a structure in place. I think you're telling guys, look, if you play this way in Syracuse, you come up to Tampa Bay, it's the same system, different players, of course, we understand that. But the defensemen the Lightning have brought up, they haven't looked out of place. It's hard to find top 6 forwards. Those typically you don't get in Syracuse, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kucherov, Point. I mean, Dylan Duke is not that.
Right.
You know, maybe Dominic James could slide up there here and there, but it's harder to find centermen in a top 6 role than it is to find collectively defensemen who can play a simpler game and not be as exposed. So perhaps I'm talking out loud here, and maybe this is more of the Nikita Kucherov for MVP.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose 3 centermen, and again, we're talking about elites. I mean, certainly Braden Point. I mean, Cirelli is right up there. I mean, you get named to the Olympic team. You've got to be doing something correctly. And Nick Paul, okay, now you start asking, where's the scoring coming from?
Right.
Now, I understand they've had a lot of good depth, and the 4th line has been good, or the Yanni Gord line has been very good. But understand, the one constant outside of a couple of games that he's missed this year has been Nikita Kucherov.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I'm going to answer my own question and say, glad you pointed that out, Evely, about the 3 centermen being out. Probably speaks to how great Kucherov has been, that he's been able to really overcome some of those players being injured and still put up as many points. I said yesterday, he's going to go down, if he stays healthy, he's going to go down as the best Russian player, at least at the forward position. He's going to have the numbers.
You're putting him ahead of Ovechkin, the goal
He's going to have the numbers. He, like,
leader.
Kucherov, you could see, like, finishing his career, he's going to have 500 goals, maybe more. And the assists, I mean, who knows where those are going to be?
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. That's just for another topic. Thomas says, I think the centermen were held out to force Gensel to take more minutes, tiring him out for the Olympics. Scoop playing chess, not checkers.
No, I don't think that's the case.
TK says, in my opinion, keeping Russia out of the Olympics is stupid. If we're keeping countries out of the Olympics based on their involvement in wars, the U.S. would never have been allowed to participate. Well, look, that's a political conversation we're not going to have here.
Show.
However, I'd love to see Russia in the Olympics.
Yeah, most hockey fans would love to see Russia in the Olympics.
That's just an opinion. K-Bay says, thank you, Dave and Greg, for doing this daily throughout the week for us fans. We appreciate your hockey analysis, hence why I tune in daily. Enjoy your couple of weeks off. Okay, we appreciate you. We really do. And everybody who has been participating. It's why we do the show.
Yeah.
Stinky says, do you think the Lightning can hold the moment after the break?
Well, that could be a Greg question, too. Hold the moment? Do you mean, like, continue on this streak?
Let's assume that's what he meant. Let's assume that's what he meant.
I don't know that they're going to go 19-1-1. They have 27 games left. I don't know in the first 21 they're going to lose 1 in regulation, but they don't need to go on a streak like that. They just need to be good enough. And I'll say this again. We have mentioned this momentum. Okay.
Yes.
I think that they want to continue to play well. And Coop said, like, we haven't been perfect every game. That's true. I mean, they didn't play perfect hockey in the last 3 games, which they've won all 3. At points, they've been a little bit off. You know, they've relied on the Boston game outside. They relied on their power play for sure to get them through it. And, you know, their Buffalo game was a weird game, as we talked about. Like, they didn't play poorly, but I'm not sure that they were on top of their game either. And the Sabres had something to do with that. And we talked about last night's game. Like, they were outplayed. They were just flat out outplayed in the first period. So Vasilevskiy was a big reason why they had a lead coming out of that period, and they made a couple of plays where they put the puck in past Tarasov. So what I would like to see coming out of the break is just high-level hockey. But they're at the point now where they don't need to go 19-1-1 to get in the playoffs. People are like, well, not just get in the playoffs, finish as high as you can. I think this Lightning team, it's not going to matter as much where they finish. I mean, they won a cup finishing third in their division.
That is true.
In 2021. Now, that team was coming off a cup. This team is a little different. Lightning haven't won a playoff series in 3 years. But is getting home ice the be-all, end-all? I think they'd like it. But to me, it's about getting in the playoffs. And hopefully, continue doing the things that have brought you success for much of the year. Even when they went 2-6-1 in December, I mean, they weren't playing horrible hockey. Just weren't getting the results, and they weren't doing enough. But they weren't that far off. So even that stretch, they were probably doing a lot of the things that they're going to need to do down the stretch in the regular season. I would say probably at the top of the list, besides play well enough to get in the playoffs and just continue playing well and avoid any huge dips in play, navigate through the busy part of their schedule. 9 of the first 14 are on the road coming out of the break. And if you can, somehow, some way, they have no control over this to some extent, but somehow, some way, stay healthy and try and be lucky and avoid any more injuries and significant injuries.
Yep.
Because now we're going to get into the point where a significant injury will potentially bleed into the playoffs. And that's what you don't want. Certainly. And just look how unlucky they were last year. Bjorkstrand got hurt, wasn't available in the playoffs. Gore got hurt in game 1. Hagel missed half the series. Sorelli was hurt too. I think so. Nick Paul got injured in the playoffs. Hedman got hurt in the playoffs. So they got some bad luck last year with injuries in addition to running into, a powerhouse team, which the Panthers were last year in the playoffs. So in the regular season down the stretch, hopefully they can avoid adding a bunch of games to their man games lost.
Let's end with a couple more here. K-Bay once again says, I think Bjork is finally getting back to himself in the sense of scoring. What is your opinion on Bjork lately?
Well, he scored goals in 3 straight games, which is great. And last night, I mean, it was a Garbaggio goal, but it was an even strength goal. His greatest strength is his wrist shot. And if he shoots that puck and it goes in, I think that's great for his confidence and his swagger. Hopefully we see more of it.
K-Bay, at this point, for me, I want to see Bjorkstrand have some good playoffs. Because I'm not sure in the regular season, yes, you want to see him build up some confidence, score some more goals. I mean, if you want to say if he gets to 20, that'd be a win. I think it's been an up and down year for him, but really where he can make that difference is in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Because if he has a monster playoffs, it's not going to matter what he did in the regular season. So get ready for the playoffs, Bjorkstrand. Get that shot ready, and let's rock and roll. Lastly, Jerry says, Greg may be our Nostradamus, like Dave alluded to yesterday, when he mentioned a scrum would happen that could possibly warrant some enforcers jumping the boards. Look.
But that didn't happen.
It didn't happen. I appreciate it. They did knock Kuch down, which, again, I said if it was Hagel, I would seriously consider having somebody get over there and say that's going to end. Kudos to Hagel and Moser and Radish for really trying to get in there, though, to protect their best player. So I think we're all on the same page. It's just in terms of how it looked. Yeah, I didn't see a Douglas or Sabrin coming over the boards, but kudos to the guys on the ice for getting that done. We appreciate that. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us on the show. We're going to take a couple of weeks off, recharge the batteries, and then, we're going to be ready to rock and roll from now until the Stanley Cup Final. Did I say that out loud? I did. So we got to get our rest.
From your lips, right?
That's right. If you still want to reach out to us via Twitter or X, whatever it is now, at Bolts Radio, and we'll get to some of those questions when we come back. And enjoy the Olympics, for sure. And everybody decompress a bit, and we'll come back ready whenever we're ready, partner.
Sounds good. The Lightning, by the way, resume practice on the 18th, which will be, I'm guessing, somewhat of a skeleton crew.
Yeah.
But they're going to get some practices in before they actually have to play a game on the 25th.
Good point.
Yep.
Partner, appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
You too.
Thank you, Steve Versnick. Jared Johnston, last show for him was yesterday. We appreciate all he has done helping our broadcast
Jared.
out. He did a wonderful job. And go ahead and find him on X and give him a shout-out from us. That's what you must do. All right, everybody. I'm Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.